If you watched even 10 minutes of the network news or scrolled through the legacy media headlines this week, you probably felt like you were trapped in an alternate reality. The talking heads weren't reporting the news, they were actively mourning the loss of their own narrative control. Welcome to the weekly roundup of mainstream media meltdown. We're living through an era where the corporate press has completely abandoned even the illusion of objectivity. They don't inform you. They try to instruct you on how to think, how to feel, and who to hate. This week was a masterclass in manufactured panics. From watching anchors literally choke up on air over standard constitutional rulings, to witnessing major newspapers run front-page hit pieces on normal American families who just want secure borders. The mask is completely off. This isn't bad journalism. It's a desperate, flailing institution realizing that the silent majority has turned off the television, tuned out the lectures, and started looking at the raw data for themselves. Let's look at the absolute worst offenders from the last 7 days. Let's start with the favorite phrase of the corporate political class this week: a threat to our democracy. Every single time a court checks the power of an unelected agency, or every time a state passes a law protecting the integrity of its elections, the media triggers the exact same alarm system. They ran wall-to-wall segments this week, treating routine constitutional balance as if it were a national emergency. We watched a prominent cable news anchor host a panel where they openly discussed restructuring the Supreme Court simply because the justices refused to bow to the executive branch's bureaucratic mandates. Think about the utter hypocrisy of that setup. They claim that they're defending institutions while actively calling to dismantle the highest court in the land because they didn't get their way. This is the protest industrial complex operating through a teleprompter. The media operates as the PR firm for the administrative state. When the permanent bureaucracy loses a tool of control, like we saw with the death of Chevron deference, the media doesn't explain the legal reasoning to you. They try to terrify you. They tell you the water is going to be poisoned tomorrow, that your rights are being erased, that anyone who supports the ruling is an extremist. It's a psychological operation designed to keep you in a state of permanent anxiety, because a panicked population is a population that looks to the state for rescue. The second half of this week's meltdown was their absolute refusal to report on the real-world crises crushing the American family. While legacy outlets spent hours obsessing over elite cocktail party gossip in Washington, they spent almost zero time on the ground looking at the actual human cost of their preferred policies. When independent reporters exposed the rise of transnational gang operations inside municipal housing complexes, the mainstream networks didn't investigate the threat to local neighborhoods. Instead, they ran a coordinated campaign to fact-check the victims. They interviewed progressive city officials who claimed the violence was isolated or exaggerated by conservative media. I see a deliberate attempt to gaslight the American worker. If a working class dad can't safely walk down his own street or take his kids to a local park because of open border fallout, the media tells him he is imagining things. If a mother points out that inflation is gutting her grocery budget, the economic columnists write articles explaining why rising prices are actually a good thing for the global economy. They despise the independent family because the family demands stability, safety, and accountability. The media elite live in an insulated, air-conditioned bubble where they don't have to deal with the consequences of soft-on-crime policies or economic insanity. They use their platforms to protect the politicians who fund their narratives, while treating the everyday struggles of the people who keep this country running as an inconvenient distraction. But the post-game analysis on their ratings tells the real story. Their numbers are cratering because the public is done buying the illusion. The mainstream media meltdown we've witnessed this week isn't a sign of their strength. It's the ultimate proof of their weakness. They're screaming louder because they know that you aren't listening anymore. They are panic-mongering because they've lost the monopoly on information. Don't let their manufactured outrage dictate the energy in your home or your community this week. The truth doesn't require a primetime slot or a corporate sponsor to endure. Keep focusing on what matters, protecting your family, leading with conviction, and looking past the screen to the real world right outside your front door. They want you distracted and divided, but we are staying focused and resolute. Stand with me, support the mission, refuse the silence. Check us out on TITDUSA.com, and I'll see you next time.